Hello, snowboarders of the internet. I'm your host Kevin, here with another Angry Snowboarder review, and today I'm going to be talking about the K2 Lien AT. So I rode these for basically the entire season, so I literally saw everything Colorado could throw at it, and I rode them at A Basin, Keystone, Breck, Copper, Beaver Creek, really pretty much everywhere. And I rode them on most of my snowboards. So I rode them on the Rome Agent Alec, the Rome Ravine, the Niche Ether, the Niche Theme, the K2 Overboard, the Arbor Clovis, basically my entire lineup. And I rode them everywhere. I rode them on everything, and I rode them in every condition possible. So if you've ever been to Colorado, if you've ever seen any conditions in Colorado, I rode in all of them with this binding. And I rode them with my DC tuck knees and my DC links. So I've got a couple different boots in them as well. The adjustability with the K2s is pretty basic. It's a unibody frame, so there's no heel cup or anything to adjust on them. The straps are on flip cams, so pop it down, adjust your strap, lock it back up. The toe strap has a little bit extra going on. The top portion of that strap, the top strand and the bottom strand, are on kind of separate pieces there. So you can kind of dual adjust that strap to really get it tailored specifically to fit whatever toe box shape you have. It works well, there's nothing else fancy going on with that strap, and it's just that basic two-strand strap. It works really well, it locks down great, and that extra adjustability was really nice. The DC tuck knees have a very kind of flat toe to it and doesn't have that sharp corner that most other boots have. So being able to really adjust that toe strap was key to getting it to really lock down on the toe of that boot specifically. The Highback adjustment on it is two little bolts. It's toolless. You loosen those up, and that's how you're going to be able to change your Highback forward lean. It just changes how early that Highback engages onto the heel cup. Your rotation, you got to pull those bolts all the way out and get them repositioned into the other holes, but not super hard to do. The last piece of adjustment is going to be under the frame. This is on K2's tripod frame technology, and this year they added, or really last year they added the heel block. So that block is providing a better kind of adjustment to it compared to the old foam gasket that they used to use, where that whole point of that gasket was to stiffen the binding up a little bit and minimize that kind of side-to-side motion that was nature to the tripod frame. That heel block does a lot better job of that, and that's primarily where the position that I rode it in was with the heel block. And then you also have different color pods you can use in the front, and then if you don't use the block in the back, you can put it in the back as well. So you have a soft, a medium, and a hard. And I chose to ride, I like the heel block in the back and the soft bushings up front. That was the feel that I really liked, and you can kind of play around with that a little bit. You can mix the colors in front to give you a little bit of kind of like a extra canting one direction or the other with under the frame. Yeah, that's kind of the adjustments on these guys. A little bit extra going on with that tripod tech and basic stuff everywhere else. Nothing but plastic with the straps, and that's really cool. There's nothing blow out, nothing to stretch, nothing really to go wrong at all. It is a solid injected nylon ankle strap that has a really good shape to it. If you over crank them, it is going to cause some hot spots and probably cause some pinching, especially if you're not riding a super stiff boot that has the structure to support that extra tightness. So just understand that if you're just a strap cranker, you're either going to have to deal with pressure points or stop doing that. It's pointless anyways. So just get them snug, maybe one or two clicks past snug, and that's really as tight as you really want to make them, because any tighter than that, and that strap just doesn't have enough give to it to mold around your boot the right way when they're that tight. Other than that, I never had any issues with them. I never had any pressure issues with them. They were comfortable for me, and they provide a lot of really nice performance to them. As you drive into them, they don't really flex that much, so they stay in that same performance range throughout your entire range of motion with it, and that's really nice for me. Toe strap is that basic two-strand strap. I talked about it in adjustability, where you can adjust each one of those strands individually of the toe strap to get it to perfectly fit the toe box of your boot. It works really well, and simple is great for me with toe straps. The simpler the toe strap, I've always found, the better it stays on your boot. K2 introduced this new design for the ankle ratchet specifically last year for the 2019 version, and they're continuing on with it for 2020, and it's a welcome addition. K2 has always used a softer plastic or a urethane for their ladders. It's super flexible, it's not brittle, they don't snap very often, and that's the reason they use it. But because it's softer, if you're not paying attention to the way you're ratcheting, or you're just a gorilla and you're just reefing on them, they tended to strip a lot easier than some of the other brands out there. So the benefit to this new ratchet is it doesn't really have the ability to twist off of that ladder because the Ratchet lever arm is now on a pivot arm that attaches to the Ratchet. So that's how it moves up and down, is on that pivot arm instead of just kind of on this twisty spring nonsense that is on basically every other binding out there. You can always kind of twist them a little bit on top of that ladder. These minimize that twisting ability, so it gives you a much more positive engagement of the Ratchet teeth onto that ladder, so you have a lot less likelihood of stripping those ladders. Toe strap's the same as it used to be, but it still works really smooth, and realistically you're typically not cranking down your toe strap as much as you do on your ankle strap. And again, if you just pay attention to the way you're ratcheting, you're not going to have any issues stripping anyways. They release super smooth, and I've always been a big fan of K2 ratchets in that vein. They just always have been super smooth and always worked really well for me. The Highback on the K2 Lien is simple, it's effective, and it's just classic. There's nothing fancy going on. It doesn't have the forward lean block, which does make it a little bit more seamless, and the way it connects into the heel cup I think provides a little bit better of a direct engagement compared to a heel block. But yeah, I mean, there's not a ton to speak about with this Highback just because there's nothing fancy going on. It's your classic nylon constructed Highback. It has enough give at the top and the corners so that it doesn't feel restrictive, but it's responsive and supportive as it needs to be, pushing straight back into it with just enough give that it doesn't feel like it's overbearing or going to be digging into your boots. So overall, just good classic Highback. The flex on these is kind of mysteriously kind of ethereal because of the tripod frame. You're going to get a little bit more movement on top of the board because of that design, but the binding itself isn't super soft. It's definitely not a stiff binding, and it's definitely not something that's going to have a lot of power and drive to it compared to some of the other stuff out there, like a Formula C, for instance, within K2's line. But it provides plenty of response and support that I was able to use these on, like I said at the beginning of this review, literally pretty much every single board that I own, as well as a bunch of review boards. So this has been a very much go-to binding for me for just about any style of board out there. And if it was too soft or didn't have enough response or stiffness to it, I wouldn't be able to do that. So the straps themselves have a lot of strength and power to them, and that's just kind of the nature of the design and shape, the fact that it's an injected plastic that doesn't have a lot of flex to it. And that kind of coupled with the classic Highback, but that tripod frame, gives you a binding that feels very locked down and supportive, but that extra little bit of movement from it. The ride feel on these is heavily dictated by the tripod frame. The whole concept behind that was to switch the dynamic of your gear from board and binding as one solid unit into boot and binding as one solid unit on top of the board. It does a really good job with that with the mini disc and the ability to move around kind of on that disc and just kind of pivot side to side and just give you a little bit more of that surfy skate style feel to it. That's definitely the style a little bit more that I've moved to, moving towards, you know, much more positive or even double positive stance and just kind of that more movement oriented feel to it. I ride super soft boots now too, so it just really works well for me and just provides a little bit surfier feel. You can move around on top of the board, really pressure the side cut exactly where you want to, because you can move your weight at the top of the board a lot easier than some of the other stuff out there. Now, there are a few other brands out there doing that kind of concept where they want your board and binding to be a little bit more separate and your boot and binding to be a little bit more directly connected. I think K2 honestly does this the best because they run those pods. Being able to have those pods in the toes and underneath the heel still gives you plenty of power and response edge to edge while still giving you that flexibility side to side. These are really built from K2 as the ride everywhere, ride everything with a little bit more surf freestyle feel to them. I think it lands pretty well as that, and that's definitely the type of ride that I would put these for. Well, I own these. That's pretty much the easiest way to talk about this binding, is they're mine. I have them, and I rode them a lot. And I'm in a fortunate position where if I don't like something, even if I own it, I don't have to keep riding it. So that says a lot about this binding. It's a very, very high pick for me, just the ride feel of it, just the performance of it, the comfort. I just like the way that it feels. I like the way that it performs on top of the board. And I really like that concept of having your boot and binding being one solid continuous unit on top of your board versus the board binding unit. It just provides that ability for me to move my weight around on top of the board a little bit less inhibited than a standard traditional frame binding. I still ride some of that stuff almost just as much as these because, again, I'm in a fortunate position to be able to do that. So this isn't necessarily better than a traditional frame out there, but I do really like this feel, and if you're looking for a little bit of that looser, skatier feel, this is definitely one of the bindings I would look for. Thanks for watching. This has been my review of the K2 Lien AT. Have you been riding this binding? Did you love the gasket and you hate the heel block? Maybe the other way around. Did you hate the gasket and now you love the heel block? Let's have a conversation about it. While you're doing that, make sure you click the subscribe button and hit the bell so you get notifications when these videos are coming out. If you're new around here, check out Angry Snowboarder VIP. I could tell you about it, but we already made a fancy video. Check out that. It's going to tell you way more and way better information than I possibly could. Thanks for watching and come and check out my next review.